Hey Standardbred lover, Nick here from Raising the Standards. Welcome to this Standardbred video training session. Today's topic isn't going to be a long one necessarily, but it's a really important one. And when we get to the end of it, I want you to do a practical activity so that you can experience exactly what I'm talking about in this training, which is experiencing a little sense of achievement and why it is so important to have little moments of joy and feeling really proud of yourself along the way. So today I want to talk about, I use a phrase very often here at Raising the Standards, and I guess to dive into why I use this expression and what it really means for Standardbred retraining. So something a lot of my students in online course, students, both in person and online, because I do a lot more online coaching now than I do one-on-one, hear me say a lot is celebrate the little wins. And I think this comes from the fact that when we work with Standardbred horses, they're so green, and there are so many little steps and challenges and frustrations and fears and worries and setbacks that we're going to have to go through to get to our big goals. And in a few weeks' time, we're definitely going to dive right into the importance of goal setting and how having that forward focus and knowing exactly where you're going, how powerful that can be, and how that can transform your horsemanship experiences on the whole. But before we get to that, I really want to take a moment to pause and smell the roses, and to, I guess, highlight not only having the importance of having this forward view, but also just, the value of making sure that along the way you stop and you appreciate the moment, like live in the moment that you're in with your horse. Because every time you have a touch point, an experience, a moment with your horse, that's one you'll never get back again. But it's just building on that relationship and connection that you have with your horse. When I talk about celebrating the little wins, I'm doing that because in terms of your mindset, it is really important to reduce this experience some of us have of being completely overwhelmed with just the enormity of taking, depending on where your horse is, a very green horse who doesn't know a lot, and having to guide them step by step through the entire retraining process. Whether you're a rider who's done this before, it might seem a little bit more natural, and that'll naturally put you in a better mindset. But for a lot of us, we get back into Standardbreds after having a long break, having not ridden, and we forget a lot of things. Or our Standardbred is our first ever horse of our own. And so, it can be pretty daunting. And to do that with a great natured horse, because that's what standys are known for, who is very green though, it just adds another layer, I think, of complexity and of a little bit of stress in some ways to everything that we do. And it is important to balance out that stress and the overwhelm and all the things we can't do view with like taking a minute to appreciate all the things that we're learning along the way and the little wins that make horsemanship such a joy. So today we're going to really focus on, I guess, acknowledging what are some of the little things that we can celebrate and why are they so important. And then we're going to do an activity. Today, it's pretty simple to understand the philosophies that I'm explaining. So once I've done that, I'm going to give you a link to a download. If you download that, it's an actual worksheet that you can fill out. And that means that this week you'll have actually achieve something. And if we go back to thinking about last week's training, which was on the 3 zones of horsemanship, that means that you've today, or whenever you do this activity, you have worked on one of your home zone activities, which means that you are tracking yourself forward. So depending on where you're at in your retraining journey and how long you've had your horse for, I think the little wins are going to be varied across that. If you've only had your horse a couple of weeks, you might think that you're not going to have a lot of little achievements that you can acknowledge. And in a sense, I guess that's true, but it also lends itself to, now that you know this philosophy, you can be ahead of it, I suppose, and you're not looking back on all the things, you're actually tracking them as they happen. If you've had your Standardbred for a while, I think a great thing is that you've got this history together that once we start to do this download activity, you'll really be able to get in the zone and identify all the different things that your horse can do. So we really need to be mindful, first of all, for this activity that's in the download, that everything that your horse does, from the day you get them to the day you're standing here now, they're learning something with every point of contact with you. And that's a wonderful thing. And they're even learning things in the paddock. You know, if they've come from a racing stable where they were in a yard, a small yard private paddock, then even just going out into a herd and learning to be part of a little community of other horses and to read their horses' body languages and to figure out their pecking order, everything's new. So we can really pull our horse thinking about little wins into just thinking about what is our horse learning along the way and what are we learning. So your little wins, you know, they can be so many different things. They can be very obvious things that you do when you're riding. For example, doing a whole lap of trot on a horse who naturally paces. The first time you get that full lap of trot, you need to fist pump the air and congratulate yourself, because it means that the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall together. But even, you know, on a smaller level, things like if you get a new horse and he's one who walks away from you and all of a sudden he starts meeting you at the fence or walking out to you, that can be a real sense of joy that you should definitely acknowledge. Going on your first outing, the first time you put your horse on a float and take them somewhere, that's really exciting and special. You know, even if it's the entire experience isn't entirely positive, because, you know, sometimes we go places and it's not the best day and things go wrong. It's about acknowledging that you did this new thing, and then that's a really big deal. The other thing I think with us standardbred people is that because our horses are naturally, they have this fifth gait, they are learning things like canter and to deal with pacing and flexion and suppleness and bend that no other person in any other breed really acknowledges. And that means that when our horses correct themselves or learn to move in a different way or pick up a new skill, or really refine a new gait or something, it's not something that anyone else is going to understand as being really exciting and worth acknowledging. But you need to jot that down and you need to drink in the moment. So if these moments come up in future, I want you to realize that they are really, really special, and to allow yourself, when they happen, you know, you do that lap of trot around the arena, you know, pull your horse back to walk, give them a pat, and then just like take a minute to just feel that pride and let yourself just smile really deeply, because that's going to connect you to your horse and make it a really positive experience. And by banking up all these positive experiences, I guess the point of it all is the more little things that you celebrate and feel incredibly happy about, it reminds you of the point of it all, and that is that the point of horses is to enjoy yourself. And there's so much pressure, and I think it comes from living in an age of social media where people share the shiny moments, they share the blue ribbons, they film themselves riding for an hour and then they screenshot one split second, you know, a hundredth of a second, and that's what they share on, you know, Instagram or Facebook. And, you know, when things aren't going right, it can feel like all your horse isn't ever going to look like that, and, you know, my horse runs around like a giraffe, and how does that feel? You know, it's overwhelming and it's disappointing and it's frustrating sometimes if you've been working really hard, but we're not seeing the reality of it. And I think the reality is that everybody struggles behind the scenes, and that we all need to really take a moment to acknowledge that. But as a standardbred community in our Standardbred Facebook group, I think it's really important to acknowledge that there are other people out there who will think that a whole lap of trot without any pace is a really big deal, and who will understand that when you finally get that left leg canter that you've been working on for 6 months, how awesome that feels. So when you take the download attached to this activity, I want you to fill it out so that you learn to identify and see all of the things that you can do now that may not have been a big, you know, that you've had to learn along the way, that may not be a big deal to anybody else or outside of the breed, but they're moments that you should look back on and feel really proud about, but then also start to learn how to identify the little moments as they pop up now that you've had this mindset shift and you can understand the importance of it. What that's going to do is it's going to give you a piggy bank full of positive moments. so that if you are going through a period, because everybody, and it's not just standardbred people, every horse person who's dealing with an animal of its own, that has a mind of its own, that is unique and has quirks and, you know, and whatnot, everybody goes through those challenges. But if we start to overload ourselves with the challenges and focusing on those and missing out on the positives, then, you know, we're taking the shine off the horsemanship experience for ourselves. So I think it's important, first of all, to go and to take a retrospective look back through doing the download activity on all of the things that you've already achieved so far, to work through the activity so that you know how to identify future things. And then as you're going along, when you identify something or you experience something that is a joy, I want you to share that. Take a photo of yourself at the tie-up rail after you ride. If you don't do it, take a selfie. Or if you're out somewhere and you walk your horse past a scary bush that you've walked past 100 times, and every time your horse is spooked and this time they didn't, take a picture of that. Take a picture of yourself smiling. Like, capture that moment, because I think by hearing about the little wins, it motivates yourself to do more of them. It inspires the rest of us who might be going through different periods as well to feel really positive. And I think that it starts to put the fun back in horsemanship again and just shift our thinking from this totally forward overwhelm moment to the, you know, yeah, I'm going there and there are things I can't do, but look at all the things I can do. And in every moment and every day, I'm working towards just experiencing one little smile for that experience with my horse, and one little milestone that maybe I can set myself for that day. That isn't a big deal, but it's a big deal to me, and it means that my horse and I are tracking forward. So I think the point of it all is that we need to celebrate the little wins, because the little wins are the things that connect us to our horse. They create the joy in horsemanship. They help to motivate us to feel like we're just jumping from positive moment to positive moment to positive moment as we're moving forward, and we're not trying to go from here to there and feeling overwhelmed. And, you know, there's nothing better than living in the moment. So, yeah, go and have a look at the download sheet, because this week's activity, it was about explaining it, but really getting you to do something practical that I think is fun. And it's something to be proud of, acknowledging all the little things that you can feel a sense of pride and achievement for. So there's no moment too small. There's no moment that isn't worth acknowledging. If it makes you feel really happy, then we would love to hear about it. So click on the link to get your download, work through your sheet, and maybe stick it on your fridge. Put some blue tack on it, stick it on the back of your toilet door. Somewhere where you will get to sit and look over all of the awesome things that you and your horse have done together, that will really keep you motivated and pull you out of any of those negative days and go, yes, okay, I can't do this, I'm having trouble, but look at all the things I can do. You know, it's not too shabby after all. All right, I hope you enjoy just something a little bit different this week, and I will see you next week.